to the lecture series on international business, and we will continue with international business environment. This is part 4. In this we will cover component of international business, that is the cultural environment. Cultural environment refers to the shared beliefs, values and customs that influence how people in different countries interact and conduct business. Understanding cultural nuances is crucial to communicate effectively, build relationships and tailor the offerings to local markets. Failure to consider cultural differences can lead to misunderstandings and ultimately business failures. Now, cultural environment is important when you are doing business domestically, but in domestic country or domestic environment, it is much more easier because you may be understanding the nuances of each culture where you are operating. But when we talk about international business, it becomes very difficult because the culture of one country may be very different from culture of another country. Culture is the aggregate of customs, beliefs, values, habits and attitudes that bind people together. Culture is learned, shared behavior, acquired through education or experience and passed on from one generation to another. So, it is not that you have to undergo a course in culture. It is automatically imbibed by a person from their parents or from their grandparents or from their environment. The characteristics of culture. The first characteristic is learned behavior. So, culture is not inherited biologically, but is learned through social interaction including family, community and education. So, it is imbibed by a person in the family or in the community they are operating, or through the education. This process known as enculturation involves acquiring knowledge, beliefs, values and behaviors from others. It is a shared phenomena. So, this is the second characteristic. Culture is a collective phenomena, meaning it is shared by members of a society or group. It is not something an individual possesses in isolation, but is a common understanding and practice within the community. And in each community, the culture will be different. So, it is very specific to a particular community. From outside that community, the culture may look very strange, but when you are part of that culture, then it becomes very common and very logical. So, cultural differences, that is why is there between different communities. The third factor is symbolic. So, characteristic is symbolic. Culture relies on symbols such as language, gestures and artifacts to communicate ideas and meanings. These symbols carry agreed upon meanings that are understood by members of a culture. So, it may be in terms of any color or any gesture or any mark which is very particular to a particular culture. Another point is integrated and interrelated. The various parts of a culture are interconnected and interdependent. Changes in one aspect of culture can influence other aspects. Each facet of culture is related to another and cannot be understood in isolation. Another characteristic is adaptive. Culture helps humans adapt to their environment and solve problems. This adaptation can be through technology, social organization or belief system. So, the culture can't be considered as rigid in the sense that there is cultural changes also happening because people are adapting to the newer conditions. Dynamic. Culture is not static, as we have said that it is adaptive. It constantly evolves and changes over time. This change can be gradual through innovation and adaptation, or rapid due to social upheaval or external influences. So, you see that with rise in information technology, the changes are fast happening in culture. Otherwise, most of the time the change in culture is a very slow process. But today, in today's generation, we find that the cultural changes are very fast because of the rise in communication technology. Compelling is another characteristic. Culture is compelling and determines the behavior of individual even though they may not be aware of this. So, it is happening automatically. So, if you are in a culture and automatically you will learn the nuances of that culture. Provides orientation. Culture provides orientation to group behavior. It is the basis of individual reaction to a given cultural stimulus. Therefore, understanding culture can help to determine how individuals might react in different situations. Now, we will discuss the dimension of culture. There are different dimensions of culture, and in a community the culture may be different from another community. So, when you are an international business organization or marketer, you have to study the culture of a particular country to understand the dimensions. First is material and non-material culture. Material culture consists of man-made things like gadgets, smartphones, car, television. So, if we see in urban India, there is a material culture. Also specific to North Indians, that the material culture you will find that they are very much into buying new cars, new smartphones, every time changing them because the culture is material. Non-material culture includes intangible factors like values, beliefs, knowledge, ideals, etc. So, for them these gadgets might not be that important. In semi-urban and rural areas, you may find non-material culture because of probably their demographic conditions also like income. But in eastern India or in southern India, you will find more of non-material culture, a generalized view, not very particular. Second type of dimension may be low context and high context culture. Low context culture emphasizes such tangible aspects of a negotiation or business deal as facts, figures and performance. So, they want tangible aspects while doing business. So, business can be conducted without face to face meetings. What you have to give is more of facts, figures and performance, charts, growth charts. These are very important when we talk about low context culture like in multinational corporations. High context culture emphasizes personal relationship, respects religion and trust, and in such type of culture what you need is personal relationships like in Japan. So, they will meet with the partners and then decide on any contract. Masculine culture and feminine culture. Masculine culture appreciates aggressiveness and assertiveness. So, emphasis is on material acquisition. They are generally outspoken and time driven. Achievements are more important than building a long term relationship in such a culture. But when we talk about feminine culture, they value quality of life and interpersonal relationships rather than material acquisition, more reserved and less time driven. Achievements are less important. Building a long term relationship is more important. So, this type of culture you will find more in Oriental countries like India, Japan. But when we talk about masculine culture, that is more prominent in Western countries. Monochronic and polychronic culture. In a monochronic culture, time is considered precious and tasks are done in order of their priority. In a polychronic culture, which is prevalent in developed nations, they gives less importance to time and time is used to achieve diverse goals. So, they are into multiple goals. Universalism and particularism culture. Under universalism, focus is more on rules than on relationships. There is close adherence to business contracts, and under particularism, relationships and trust are more important. Individualism and communitarianism. In individualism, people consider themselves as individuals and more important. They are not related more to the communities, and it helps in quick decision making because they do not want to discuss it before taking any decisions. In communitarianism, individuals consider themselves as part of a group. So, they believe in building lasting relationships, and whenever they are taking decisions, they discuss it with other people in a very democratic way and then take the decisions. Neutral and versus emotional culture. In neutral culture, emotions are held in check, everything should be put in writing. Emotions are openly expressed in an emotional culture and they respond warmly to emotions of others. Specific and diffuse culture. In a specific culture, people are open and extrovert. They keep work life and private life separate. While doing business, one should get to the point, be efficient, and should not use connections in deals. So, if we will find specific culture in multinational corporations. In diffuse culture, they are indirect and people are introvert. They mix work life and private life. While doing business in this culture, they should show patience and should respect the title, age and background of the person. So, it is more in family owned business that you will find diffuse culture. Achievement versus ascription culture. In achievement culture, status of a person depends on his performance. People doing business in such culture should make use of data, knowledge and technical expertise to impress the person. In ascription culture, it depends on who or what a person is. People doing business in such culture should ensure that the negotiating team is headed by a senior and formal position holder to impress them, as status is important. So, we find that when we are talking about these dimensions, we find that these are not watertight compartments. A person may be individualism, a culture may be individualistic as well as achievement oriented, or it may have many other dimensions also. So, the developed nations might be having a particular type of culture, and in developing countries another type of culture is possible. And in a country also, in urban areas different culture may be there, in semi-urban and rural areas different culture may be there. So, the marketer or the business corporation should understand these dimensions while doing business in different countries. Now, the elements of culture. The first element is language. It is the primary means of transmission of ideas, information, which helps in social interaction and creates a system of shared values or norms. So, we communicate through language. When we are creating an advertising message, a particular language will be used. Global firms have to face the problem of differences in language. Spoken, written, symbols and body language has different meanings in different cultures. Translation difficulties are there in advertising, drawing manuals and catalogs. Second element is religion. Religion refers to the common beliefs and rituals related to issues that are considered sacred. A firm must understand the religious beliefs, customs, rituals and festivals of every country in which they operate. In India, where we have multiple religion, the domestic firm also faces this problem of understanding the religion. So, when we talk about international business, then the problem multiplies and you have to understand the religion of the country where you are doing business. For Hindus, cow is sacred. Muslims don't eat pork. All this has an impact on advertising message and products you are selling. For example, for veg and non-veg products, these marks or symbols are there on the packages nowadays. Caste is another important factor, especially in a country like India. Caste can impact business in regions where it is relevant social hierarchy. It can affect hiring practices, business networks and even lead to discriminatory practices. So, you should be very aware of the caste system, especially prevalent in India while doing business, that you are whatever advertising is there, it is not hurting the feelings of a particular caste. Another is region. The regional location affects everything from trade barriers and cultural nuances to infrastructure and economic stability. It influences factors like access to ports, transportation, networks and natural resources impacting trade and logistics. Cultural differences across regions can significantly impact business practices, marketing strategies, and even communication styles. So, you will find that the cultural differences are there in India region wise as well. So, North Indians have a different culture than the South Indians or the East Indians or the West Indians. The economic structure of a region and its industrial base affects its ability to adapt to global market. So, for an international business, the Asians are different, and in Asia also South Asians form one region, the East Asians form another region, Middle East forms another region. Social groups, it refers to how people relate to one another and their interaction among themselves. Family structure, whether joint, nuclear family, will have an impact on purchasing pattern. Reference group also influences purchase decision making. Values and attitudes. Values are basic convictions regarding right and wrong, good and bad, important and unimportant. In some of the economies, some of the countries, values are very important. An attitude is a persistent tendency to feel and behave in a particular way towards something or someone. So, these variables are very important while designing a marketing mix. So, if we think about India, the certain values are like honesty, respect towards elder. So, if your advertisement is matching with these values, then they will be allowed in country like India, otherwise sanctions will be there. Customs, manners and etiquettes are also important to understand for an international business organization. Customs are the common established practices of behavior. So, the customs are like different festivals that we are celebrating. Manners refers to the behavior that is considered appropriate in a particular social setting, like shaking hands with other people whenever you meet, or even touching the feet of elders, which is prevalent in India. That is also manners. How you speak, these are considered as manners, and related to that is etiquette. In this also, how people greet each other, that shows the etiquettes. So, you have to understand these etiquettes, like in India we say namaste, we do namaste, and in western world we shake hands. So, these are different manners. So, the international marketer has to understand that. Another point is aesthetics and colors. Aesthetic deals with art and beauty. It includes interpretation of numbers and colors and has important implications for a marketer. So, certain colors are considered as auspicious in one culture and inauspicious in another culture. Certain numbers are considered as auspicious in some cultures and inauspicious in other cultures. So, you have to understand that while creating your advertising message. For example, white color is worn by Christian brides, but it is a color of mourning in Hindus. Now, finally, we come to the dimensions of culture, which is given by Hofstede. We have already studied the dimensions of culture. Hofstede has also developed certain dimension of culture. So, about Geert Hofstede, he was a psychologist. He conducted research in 1960s and 70s and studied over 1 lakh employees of IBM across 50 countries. He developed a framework to describe the national culture across 5 dimensions, which can be used to identify the cultural differences among countries. So, some of the dimensions are those which we have already discussed in dimensions of culture. A few others he has created. So, the model helps in understanding the differences in culture across the globe, though it describes culture of a country, but it can vary at an individual level for people belonging to the same culture or nation. So, though I am belonging to a particular culture, but because of my upbringing, I may behave differently, or I may have taken up another culture. So, this model also states that. It gives insight to companies working across different countries, and especially for managers who are working with team members belonging to diverse culture. It helps marketers to understand the mindset of consumers of different parts of the world. Now the model emphasizes that country's culture is more important against the organization's culture. So when you are, maybe you are an US, total US company and doing business in India or Japan. So you have to understand the culture of that country rather than putting emphasis to the culture which is prevalent in USA, because now you are doing business in another country. So this model states the same, helps to develop cultural sensitivity and thereby reducing cross-cultural conflict while designing any message. The 5 dimensions he talked about is power distance, uncertainty avoidance, individualism and collectivism, which we have already discussed under dimensions of culture, masculinity or femininity, which we all again discussed, time orientation. So, power distance, it is the degree to which unequal distribution of power is accepted or rejected by people in a society or a company. High power distance culture, here the respect is given to the hierarchy system, bureaucracy, status and age. Like in India, we have a high power distance culture in many parts where there is a difference in the status of people, and whatever we are, however we are working under that hierarchy only. So, it has a more formal culture such as in Asian countries. So, in Asian countries, high power distance culture is there, and the multinational company has to abide by that. When we talk about middle power distance culture, it is casual, flat organizational structure, decentralized and participative management style will be there. People address each other by their first name irrespective of their age and designation. For example, in US, you will find this type of culture where they call people by their name rather than attaching any suffix or prefix like sir or Mr. Then uncertainty avoidance, the degree to which one is uncomfortable with change, risk and ambiguity in a situation is called the uncertainty avoidance. High uncertainty avoidance culture, here people prefer a structured and controlled system, will not be comfortable with spontaneous changes. So, in India, in government structure, government organizations, we find high uncertainty avoidance culture. So, we go by first one, that is rank and file and rank and status, as well as here also we go by the whatever bureaucratic structure is there. We do not make any changes swiftly. Then high uncertainty avoidance culture, for example, Japanese like to follow a structured step by step process while doing an international business negotiation. Low uncertainty avoidance culture, people are more open to change and new ideas and innovativeness like in multinational corporations. So, they are more attuned to the environmental changes and they make changes in their organization structure very fast. The third dimension is individualism or collectivism. Individualism refers to focusing on one's own interest, as we have discussed earlier also, and one's immediate family. For example, USA and other West European developed countries, individualism is there, they live for themselves. So, they whatever decisions they are taking, they are not taking for the whole of the community, they do not believe that they are responsible for the community, they are responsible for their own interest or their family. When we talk about collectivism, it is about the feeling of belonging and the interest of the larger group of the society. Like in Oriental culture, they are more collective while taking decisions that whether it will benefit the whole of the community or not. High collectivism country or culture, here accomplishment of the team in an organization or welfare of the society will be more vital while making a decision, as we have talked about the Oriental cultures. For example, in Central American countries where community ties are important, advertisement focusing on community development will be taken more positively. Masculinity or femininity is the another dimension, the fourth dimension. It refers to gender role differentiation or stereotypical attitude toward masculine traits or feminine traits. Masculine traits, we have discussed that they are assertive, bravery, competitiveness and materialism, which is prevalent in US. Feminine traits are feelings, nurturing, relationships and quality of life. Japan scores the highest on masculine values, and hence career advancement opportunities for women are limited as there is a patriarchal system. So, in this trait Japan lags behind, it has patriarchal system. Sweden scores the lowest on masculine values, and hence they provide benefits to female workers, maternity leave and child care leave, female oriented HR policies for better child care, work life balance, and they do not want to lose their female workers. And the last one is time orientation. It refers to whether an individual is inclined more towards short term or long term goals. Americans are oriented towards short term gratification and achieving short term goals, hence they are impatient and want instant results. Asians are persevering, adaptable and willing to devote more time and effort to accomplish the long term goals. The sixth dimension was added by Michel Bond in 1991, and it is called restraint versus indulgence. It considers the tendency to fulfill desire. High indulgent society, people will tend to spend more on luxury items. The best example is that of USA. When we talk about restrained society, desires are suppressed and usually the people focuses on saving money. India is the best example where people prefer to save for the rainy days and for the future. Let's summarize this lecture. The cultural environment refers to the shared beliefs, values and customs that influence how people in different countries interact and conduct business. The characteristics of culture are that it is learned behavior, shared, symbolic, integrated, adaptive and dynamic. The different dimensions of culture are material, non-material, low context, high context, masculine, feminine. Elements of culture are language, religion, caste, region, social groups, values, attitudes, customs, manners, etiquettes, aesthetics and colors. Hofstede developed a framework to describe the national culture across 5 dimensions used to identify the cultural differences among countries. The 5 dimensions are power distance, uncertainty avoidance, individualism or collectivism, masculinity or femininity, and time orientation. A 6th dimension, restraint versus indulgence, was added by Michel Bond. Hope you have enjoyed this lecture. Thank you very much, students.